Shout out to the greatest podcast out there with Ross and Calum, Jiu Jitsu Oracle.
Welcome to the Jiu Jitsu Oracle, where on this video we're going to talk about the new wave team at CJI 2. I'm Ross. I'm joined as always by Calum, and what we've had at New Wave is Big Dan dropping out of the event. Their plus 99 competitor. I believe it's Lyme disease that he's suffering from, and as a replacement, they've brought in Vagner Rocha. He's going to go in at under 88 kilos, and that means Giancarlo Bedone goes up to under 99, and Luke Griffith goes to over 99. So, on that whole thing, what are you feeling, Calum?
I just want to rewind a second because I didn't know why he pulled out. It's Lyme disease. Is that not like
So.
a lifelong debilitating illness?
Can be, I believe. Can be, yeah. I think you pick it up. I remember going to America and was warned to watch out for ticks, especially in long grass. You know, if one of them bites you, essentially, they can pass on this. And yeah, it depends. Like, lots of people have various reactions to it. I don't know if it can lie dormant in some people. I don't know if it then in other people it creates symptoms that would be very fatiguing, etc. So yeah, I think perhaps as well, if it's caught early and treated early, it's better. So fingers crossed for Big Dan. That it's just like I think he was laid low with sickness, got tested, and I think I'm remembering rightly. But if I'm not, I apologize. But I think I'm remembering rightly that this was the issue that was highlighted. But yeah, if he just misses the event and then he recovers well and he's able to get back to training, etc., then that's what we're hoping for Big Dan. But yes, that is the situation as it is. Big Dan's out through illness, and now Wagner's in, and the team's being shaken up a bit. So, any experts on Lyme disease, please get in the comments and let us know what you think the situation with that could be going forward. But as the jiu-jitsu expert, Calum, let's look at this situation in terms of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, as far as the effect on the team, so they've obviously got Wagner in, and I think they put Wagner at the 88 slot, which means they have to bump up Luke and Giancarlo to under and over 99. That does affect the team. As far as scoring, I don't know if we would score any of them any differently, but there could be big disparities within certain stars. You can have very strong 4 stars, not quite as strong 4 stars, and having those two guys move up does severely affect the team, especially comparing them to B team that have got Nicky Rod and Victor Hugo, 2 massive physical guys at the under and over 99, and then Atos with Felipe and Kynan. And Giancarlo's relatively big, but compared to those guys, not quite on the same level. And then Luke is that size, but they've now only got 1 guy at that size, whereas before they had 2. So I think that is going to affect the team somewhat.
Yeah, just to let the viewers know, that was the point I just made to Calum prior to recording, and now Calum's taken that point and ran with it. So I think we can say we both share that opinion that B team have 2 heavy hitters who are definitely at the big end weight class, very, very strong, very, very good jiu-jitsu. Same with Atos. And then the question to me now is is Luke and Giancarlo just a bit undersized relative to the guys you mentioned? And how will that play out in the team dynamic? Should they face each other? And does it bring, when Calum was talking about scoring, we've scored all the teams going into the event, and every grappler got a score out of 5. And we had New Wave on 24 points as our leading team. Atos were on 23. B team were on 20. I think you're right. I see Big Dan as a 3-star grappler. I see Vagner Rocha as a 3-star grappler. And I think the way we've scored it's not really going to get affected. Well, I would say though, there is outside of that scoring system, I do feel like the teams are sort of bunched like very close together between New Wave, Atos, and B Team now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that does make things closer. The bigger grapplers are more likely to have an impact on the team more than other ones, just because that's just how these quintet style events work. The bigger guys are going to take out more people. They're going to be harder to take out from the smaller people. I think with a direct comparison between the two, I know Wagner's beat Luke Griffith, and I'm not sure if he's beat Big Dan before. I could definitely see Wagner beating Big Dan, but I think the comparison between the two in the context of the event is you've got Big Dan, who has a really strong submission threat and could easily take out like 2-3 guys on a team, but is also very inconsistent with his performances. Compared to Wagner, doesn't quite have that same submission threat, but is pretty consistent and could definitely take out like a big name on another team, like a Nicky Rod or a Kynan. I think like Big Dan's like investing in cryptocurrency could work out really well for you, could not, and then Wagner's like McDonald's or something, like a nice safe bet. So I think they're both somewhat comparable, but it just depends. Like it could shake out better or worse for New Wave depending on what they need at the time. If they needed more submissions and people off the board, Big Dan might have been better. If they needed to take like a big hitter off of another team, Wagner might work out better.
I think within your team, and perhaps we'll get more into the strategy behind it all once we know the lineups and the brackets are released. I think within your team, yeah, you need that mix of like submission guys and guys who are durable and able to take out other people. And I think that's very important in terms of the mix once you get to like 88, under 99, and plus 99. I think you're hoping that your smaller guys can like either draw with a very skilled smaller guy or submit them and then perhaps go the distance with a bigger guy. But like they're going to be there's more limitations on what they can do probably, as opposed to like the bigger guys, you could see them maybe submitting back-to-back opponents. I think the under 88 class is really interesting because if you can get your under 88 guy to take out their over 99 guy, that would seemingly be a win for you in terms of the situation. And I do think you need under 88 guys who are like durable, but also can submit. So that's the only thing with Vagner. It's just like I can see him drawing, but like having an 88 guy like Giancarlo, who not only would be able to potentially draw against someone bigger, but who could submit them. I think having him at that weight is like he's one of the best guys at that weight to have. So him going up one, I don't know if it's like a benefit.
Just one thing on that. I don't know if I'm just like, this is one of these things you just think you see or you make up in your own head, but I saw something on Instagram that instead of going to a draw, they were going to have like a referees or judges decision with the matches. Do you remember seeing anything about that?
Yeah, from what I believe, the matches will be scored, but the scores only come into play if the whole match between the teams is a draw at the end of it. So if you get your last two guys and they draw with each other and there has to be like a tiebreaker to decide who goes through, they've then scored each individual match that didn't end in a submission. And like that's going to be the deciding factor between the teams because like one has to advance. Because you could get to the last match and it's just two guys go against each other and it's a draw and they both go out.
I think what would be more exciting, maybe they've went that way because of time constraints, but I think it'd be more exciting if they got to the last two, it was a draw, and then they had like a sudden death and like both teams put out their best guy and then you're guaranteed to have like Nicky Rod versus a Kynan or whatever, and like you're gonna have that big match to finish it off.
Yes! Did you watch the Olympic Judo?
No.
There's a team event in Olympic Judo now, right? And they do it, it's right off the top of my head, from what I remember watching the Olympics, was that the event is the team is comprised of males and females. That like you face your opponent, in their weight class, obviously like same sex as well, right? So, and then I think there was 5 matches in the team. Anyway, it was France against Japan in the final, right? And after 5 matches, I believe, it was deadlocked. So what they do is in the judo, they then do, well, what's supposedly a random draw for the weight class that's then going to come out and face each other to decide it all. And from what I remember, what transpired was it was France's best judoka is Teddy Riner, big heavyweight. And he's like national hero. And when it went to the draw for like, you saw on the screen, like the weight classes ticking through, like, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? And then it settled on the biggest weight class. And then Teddy Riner came back out for the match. And then France won, beating Japan in France. So it was an amazing end to the event. And I think like they could just do it. Whereas, like either the coaches both pick one guy to go back out for their team, or Craig gets the decision, kind of like Craig sitting on a throne, like Greg Davis and Taskmaster, and he just, if he's not going to have a match in the event, maybe he could do this, and he just says it's that guy against that guy to decide the title. A bit problematic given that it could be his team involved in the finale, but you know what I mean. I think something like that's like a good idea, and I don't think there's like huge time constraints because from what I can see, the first day starts at 6 p.m. Vegas time and the second day starts at 5 p.m. Vegas time, right? So they're pretty late in the day, right? So if you have to budget in an extra half an hour or whatever, like just bring the event slightly further forward to give yourself the room to play around with some of these ideas. Anyway, when you go.
Yeah, I just think that would be a way to be guaranteed to see some of the matches that people really want to see, because you could have like an Atos versus a New Wave or whatever, and then you could have Atos' best guy gets kind of like stalled out by someone, and that misses the opportunity to them face New Wave's best guy. I think that would add excitement and have like a guaranteed at the end, if they are drawing, that match is going to happen.
Like one thing I'm slightly concerned's probably too strong a word, right? But what I will say is Polaris, their squad's format is basically like there's 2 teams, there's 2 45-minute halves, and you keep sending guys out through the 45 minutes until that half's ended, and then we see what the score is at the end of the half. But and it's winner stays on, right? So like it's great because you get to see multiple matches from guys, and then winner stays on. Like they can maybe win, you can maybe go on a really good run would be like 2 or 3, but at that point you're going to start fatiguing, and then it's really good grapplers on another team. So eventually, like you will lose or draw or whatever. But the thing I like about Polaris is like you get to see the guys on the team multiple times through the match, and my fear for this format is basically like there's only one, like a team could have one match, and within that one match you might get like a really difficult situation where you don't see the best of that guy. It just like the matchup's just like there's just like 50 kilos between the guys. The guy gets smooshed. He never gets a chance to have a second match or whatever. And I don't know, like in football how you do like in the World Cup, there's a group format first, and then you get into the knockouts. I just concerned about, again, I don't know if I'm concerned, but I have got thoughts of, it'd be a real shame if like this team's in the event, and then there's this guy, this grappler I want to see, and then they get like a really, really difficult style matchup, and then that's basically just them done, So what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree, because you can take like Pato for an example. People might be really excited to see Diego Pato compete, and then he gets like a over or under 99 guy, just gets squashed, and then you don't get to see him for the rest of the event. So yeah, I do agree with that.
What about if it was a draw, and then there was like a 5-minute window, or even less than that, just on like you could do it on Instagram or something, just a poll. Like pick the grappler from this team that it's a fan vote, or you could do it in the arena, and I think these are all reasonable ideas to discuss. I'm not saying I would definitely do it that way, but I think something like that would be kind of like I do think if the whole thing comes down to like a big match that people want to see to decide who goes through, I think that's a better way of doing it than like a score.
Yeah.
So I will agree on that. But yeah, so just on this New Wave situation, are we saying that like we had New Wave 1 seed, Atlas 2, B Team 3? I'm kind of happy to stay with that, but I think like it's like 1 seed, 1.1 seed, 1.2 seed now, you know?
Yeah, it's very close now. Just thinking about like B Team with Nicky Rod and Victor Hugo, just having those two alone is massive, and then Joseph Chen is also really good. You know, their top 2 heavy guys I would actually take over New Wave, but then it's almost like New Wave has a third heavy hitter outside of the 2 heavy weights with Mika, because Mika can definitely sub some of the bigger guys as well, and like he's just so solid and so dangerous that like he's almost within that realm himself, you know.
The interesting thing is like I think initially because New Wave's such a big gym in terms of like a lot of the guys who they have out competing for them. Yes, they have other grapplers like Gary Tonin or Dorian or obviously Helena, like doesn't fall into like the big male heavyweight category, but like I thought initially like that's where New Wave would have the edge. Obviously they would if Gordon took part, but now like you mentioned the bigger guys at B Team, and then like Atos as well, like their third guy would be Hulk, right? So you'd have Philippe, Kynan, Hulk, like that's like real heavies. But I do think you're right in terms of like that 77 for New Wave's interesting because Mika, I think, is the only grappler we scored 5 stars going into the event.
Yeah.
And he, like I mentioned before, if you can have an 88 guy that can take out bigger guys, that's huge. Does it stretch far enough for like Mika to be possibly like one of the few 77s in the world who could potentially do that? Maybe. And then again, that would be like a little bit extra for New Wave that the other teams don't have.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like he's so nailed on to submit anyone in the tournament from 66 to 88, and then like there's still like he still has a very strong chance of submitting some of the under and over 99 guys.
Yeah, definitely. I just think, especially with the teams outside of these top 3, perhaps my mind is wandering to the fact that like it probably is going to come down to 2 of those 3 to decide it all, barring like a big shock. And how does that shake out? But we're going to have to wait till the brackets come out before we get more into this sort of thing, I think. As for now, New Wave are still, by a smidge, our number 1 seed for the event. But let's see what happens. Through the week, we will have lots more content on CJI too. So keep liking and subscribing, telling people to watch the Oracle and watching it yourself. And those of you who are watching on YouTube, you'll see Calum's eyes are wandering as he considers all the possibilities for matches that could take place. So tune in and we'll get more of his thoughts through the week.